You're listening to the Retro Mo Podcast. I'm your host, Mo, and I love to play and review old video games and a few new games too. If you prefer to read instead of listen, check out my written reviews at retromo.substack.com. In this episode, I'll be sharing my experience with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the Nintendo Switch released in 2022. I scored this game 7.5 out of 10. A good game. An underbaked pile of jank that squanders an otherwise great Pokemon game design. To quote Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet really is a tale of two games. I can see the game that this team clearly wanted to make, but the game that they released seems to be something different entirely. This is both one of the best and one of the worst Pokemon games I've ever played, in different ways. The core gameplay changes they've made are a huge step in the right direction for the modern era of Pokemon games. Simultaneously, the visuals are not just bad, they are outright embarrassing. I just can't fathom that Nintendo put their stamp on this game. It's one of the jankiest and worst looking games Nintendo's ever published on any of their platforms, even after being fully patched. Let me explain my theory, so put on your tinfoil cap for a moment, or you can skip ahead a few minutes. I'm not the first to conjure up this theory. I believe Pokemon Scarlet Violet was initially developed for the Switch's successor, the Switch 2, instead of the original Switch. Of course, I have no hard evidence to support this, just some logical leaps and wild speculation. Pokemon Sword and Shield runs and looks fine on the Switch, though I did complain about some underdeveloped sections in my review. But that game utilizes a visual style that seems to work well with the Switch's limited power. It utilizes flat, vector-like, cel-shaded looking graphics. Tears of the Kingdom utilizes this style as well, and Sword Shield was released in late 2019. Scarlet and Violet was months in development before the massive chip shortage hit in early 2020. This shortage most likely delayed the original release plans for the Switch 2, and interestingly, Scarlet Violet utilizes high detail textures instead of the simpler vector cel-shaded style graphics. If you zoom in on any of the major characters in the game, you can see so much texture and detail in their school uniforms, the fur on the Pokemon themselves. It's when you zoom out that these high detail textures automatically change to low-res garbage, and this is a game development technique called dynamic resolution scaling, or DRS. The level of detail they use on some of the character and Pokemon models is extremely ambitious for the Switch, but would otherwise be a welcome visual upgrade for a Switch 2 Pokemon game utilizing a beefier chip and DLSS. Who knows how deep into development they were and how many high-detail 3D models they'd finished when this call might have been made. But I can imagine a Nintendo executive calling up the game director, Shigeru Omori, saying, "So, the Switch 2 isn't happening due to the chip shortage. You need to make this game work on the original Switch, and it needs to be ready by Christmas 2022. This would explain the poor performance, why the DRS is so aggressive, and why some of the textures look so bad. They probably had to spend a big chunk of development time trying to downscale this game into a workable state, and they had limited time for fixing bugs and optimizing the game for the Switch." Lastly, a leaker at one point claimed that there was a Scarlet Violet graphics update patch for the Switch 2 in the works. I'd imagine this would reverse a lot of the aggressive DRS they already applied, and then we'd get to enjoy a full resolution game. Alright, that's the end of my crazy theory. With that out of the way, let's talk about the amazing gameplay. And fair warning, there's some mild gameplay spoilers ahead. This is the most fun I've had with a Pokemon game since Generation 3. They've taken the best part of Sword Shield, the wild areas, and applied this great concept to the entire game map. I had so much fun just riding around on my bike, collecting items, looking for new Pokemon to catch, more trainers to battle, etc. I wonder if I can go out to that island off in the distance. Why, yes. Yes, I can. This is the freedom that Pokemon gamers have been wanting for years. The terrain is well designed for the most part, with lots of varied elevation and even a few maze-like sections and caves. This is so much more fun to explore than the brutally linear paths that you find in Sword and Shield. Terrastalizing is the new region-specific feature that replaces Dynamaxing, Z-moves, or Mega Evolution, etc. It adds some welcome strategic depth to the battle system by allowing you to temporarily change a Pokemon's type in battle. On the map, the Pokemon are wonderfully lifelike. Some will leave you alone or even run away in fear. Some will approach you but stop short just to observe. And some are aggressive and will initiate combat. You'll occasionally find Pokemon of the same kind gathered in packs, or being shepherded by an evolved form of that Pokemon. For example, a pack of Mankeys being led by a Primeape. I just found that to be so cool. The Pokemon animations and movements add a lot of character to the game. Croagunk walks with a sassy strut. Psyduck has a very distinctive waddle. I love how you can hold ZL to target, identify, and see if you've caught a Pokemon already. You can also engage from a distance this way. Having full control of the camera during battle is a nice plus. They developed battle animations and running animations for the Let's Go feature for a whopping 400 Pokemon. Wow, that alone is an impressive feat. Pokemon auto-battling saves loads of time, and Scarlet Violet is generous in doling out rare candies and experience candies. It feels like the game is well balanced. I caught pretty much every new Pokemon that I saw, I battled every trainer I could find, and I was only about 3 to 5 levels above the gym leaders throughout the game. I decided not to use any of my rare candies until the end of the game. The new Pokédex reward system adds a nice incentive to catching Pokemon. I was actually motivated to catch some new Pokemon in this game. The TM crafting machine is a nice addition. Even though all TMs are single-use now, you can use the machine to make more TMs anytime you want, in addition to those you find on the map. And as you progress, you unlock more craftable TMs. It requires a new currency called LP, and the required TM materials are earned by defeating or catching Pokemon of a certain type. For example, TM 163, Hyper Beam, requires 14,000 LP, 8 Dratini scales, 5 Gumi Goo, and 3 Tauros hairs. So you feel like you're earning these TMs, not just paying for them, and it encourages additional exploration. The picnicking feature replaces Sword Shield's camping feature. You can make sandwiches that provide temporary benefits, and having the Pokemon play with the ball is super cute, though sometimes it was very buggy. Giving Pokemon a bath makes the process of raising a Pokemon's friendship level much easier, and all the Sylveon fans rejoice. I wasn't crazy about the Team Star auto battles. It's nice that they're trying to break up the RPG monotony with something different, but this particular feature just felt very underbaked. You just mash the R button and watch your Pokemon one-shot enemy Pokemon that have been lazily scattered around the Team Star base. Many of the gym test minigames also felt like an afterthought. The visuals are where this game really takes the darkest turn. Scarlet Violet looks like a shell of what it could have been. They've released multiple patches, but I still encountered very noticeable frame rate drops, animation stuttering and resets, visual artifacts, and egregious asset pop-in. Assets are popping in and out of existence almost constantly in this game. The pop-in is so bad that when you use the boost mode on your bike, you often run into Pokemon accidentally. They just suddenly pop into existence in front of you before you have a chance to react. It's very frustrating, and the pop-in sours the otherwise excellent experience of cruising around the map. Many of the textures are atrocious. If you zoom in and isolate a character or a Pokemon, the textures look great. But zoomed out, as multiple assets try to render on the very underpowered Switch, everything looks garbage. You can also notice the aggressive DRS at work, drastically dropping resolutions as you move through the world. Where are all the trainers in this area? Let's climb up to this high peak so we can get a better view of a massively res-derped low-poly landscape that looks like a mobile game from 2009. You can't actually see anything from a distance because none of the assets are showing up. The cutscenes range from okay to terrible. The opening cutscene looks so bad. I think they'd be better off just cutting it from the game. It's a very poor first impression. The shadows are also so bad, it's a distraction. Instead of simple circular Gaussian blurs, they have these weird, blocky, chunky shadows that shift and blink into different positions. It reminds me almost of the pixels in a PlayStation 1 game. Something that bugged me the entire game, when a Pokeball snatches up a Pokemon and makes that dink dink landing sound before it starts to shake, sometimes it still appears inches above the ground. I mean, I imagine this can't be that difficult to fix. The camera would also occasionally clip through the ground and the ground just disappears. Also, I often noticed low quality repeating texture patterns, especially on some cliff faces. If you want, you can check out some screenshots on my Substack. I did experience one game-breaking bug. After battling the Dragon Titan, I got stuck on a black screen multiple times. I had to hard reset the game and replay the Titan battle while undocked. Apparently that was the fix. Take it out of your dock, then battle the Titan. And then it worked fine. So thank you, internet sleuths, for helping me figure that one out. On a brighter note, there are plenty of moments of Pokemon magic in this game. Many of the characters are well designed and very memorable. I was absolutely delighted with the 3 starter Pokemon and the interactions you get to share with them. They really do come to life in this game. Quaxley's hair alone is worth the price of admission for this game. The Let's Play feature is a joy. Your Pokemon get to come out of their Pokeball and follow you around the map. Clavel, Nemona, Iono, and Larry are some of my favorite characters. And there are loads of great new Pokemon in Scarlet Violet. All 3 starters are fantastic, though I do think the evolutions for all of them except Sprigatito look really goofy in my opinion. Miraidon's weird wheel belly and his butt jets took some getting used to, but he grew on me with his cute animations. Lechonk, Palmy, Tandemaus, Charcadet, Bellybolt, Tinkatuff, Grievard, Citadel, and Gimmighoul are some of my favorite new Pokemon. Oh, can't forget Fido. So cute. And Tatsugiri is literally a piece of sushi. Based on nigiri. 10 out of 10. Best Pokemon. Also, to be honest, there were a few rare moments when I thought, okay, this game doesn't look that bad. There were at least a few sections that looked fine once I got used to the low poly environments. The lighting and the water visuals are solid. The minimal HUD was clean and worked just fine. I love the Iberian Peninsula themes. Paldea is based on the Iberian Peninsula, which includes Spain, Portugal, and Andorra. I was so excited to explore the boarding school, I was thinking, oh, is this where Pokemon meets Harry Potter? But I was disappointed to find that you can't actually roam the halls. You just kind of warp between these isolated rooms. You can take classes and interact with teaching staff to gain their trust, but don't expect a full school sim here. The Terra battles, which replaced the Dynamax raids, are some of the best looking sequences visually. The crystallizing effect is very impressive, in spite of the texture issues. I must say though, the Terra-type hats on the Pokemon look really goofy. I'm not sure I'm vibing with that. The story is serviceable. There were some good moments that really shined for a Pokemon game, but there were of course some very cringy lows in the story as well. I found it very difficult to get engaged with the Team Star flashbacks. Not surprisingly, there's another heaping dose of Pokemon plot with this release. At times it feels like you're in the middle of a poorly written Saturday morning cartoon. At other times they venture into some unfamiliar territory with some surprisingly mature themes. They explore abandonment, family strife, workaholism, and human death via Pokemon attack. Wow, that one surprised me. The game has a satisfying ending sequence, but I was not at all prepared for the very jump the shark levels of sci-fi absurdity in Pokemon Violet that they mixed in at the very end. Some moments were interesting, other moments were cringe. But, this is par for the course with recent Pokemon games. A welcome change is this game's non-linearity. Even though all of the storylines converge together at the end, you have 3 main story paths that you can pursue. Because of the way each challenge is leveled, it's best to tackle all 3 paths simultaneously, bouncing to whichever challenge is closest to your level next. Interestingly, Pokemon Scarlet has a different ending sequence than Pokemon Violet. Major story beats are flipped around, which is somewhat similar to Generation 3. The music of this game has really grown on me. Scarlet Violet has a very eclectic soundtrack. You've got your standard orchestral tracks, which sound great. You've got some jazz, rock, pop fusion tracks akin to something you've heard in the Sword and Shield soundtrack, and plenty of gorgeous Spanish-themed tracks that utilize traditional Spanish instrumentation like nylon guitar, trumpet, accordion, congas, castanets, and the like. My only gripe with the soundtrack is the odd addition of a few country western tracks that just seemed very out of place. They kind of muddle this Paldean sound that they've shaped with the other tracks, and they instead sound like something you'd hear on an episode of Pawn Star or American Pickers. A few of my favorite songs from the soundtrack include Elite Four Room, Clavel Battle, Area Zero, and Inlet Grotto. Overall, once my eyes got used to the horrible visuals, I was able to get a lot of enjoyment out of this very broken mess of a game. There's so much jank here, but there's also a lot of great new ideas and fantastic Pokemon gameplay. So, as it stands, I feel like it was generous to give this one a 7.5. However, if they fixed all of the issues and re-released it on a more powerful console, this game would easily be a 9 out of 10 in my book. If you can stomach the jank, I highly recommend this one for fans of the Pokemon series. Thanks for listening to the Retro Mo podcast. As always, I do my best to keep all of my content spoiler-free and rated E for everyone. If you find this podcast enjoyable or helpful, tell a friend, and consider giving a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. If you have questions or comments, you can send an email to retromopodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Godspeed.